What's up, YouTube? So I went ahead and put together my Core Life 29-gallon aquarium stand. Overall, I can give it a thumbs up. It's a pretty nice looking stand. I definitely like the colors that came in and how nice it looks when the tank's actually sitting on it. You can tell that they were made for each other. As far as the material is concerned, I would recommend to be very, very careful when assembling this unit, solely because the wood's very soft. It's kind of similar to that Walmart furniture where if you over tighten it you will strip it, but it's definitely a beautiful stand. The doors open nice and wide and you got a lot of space in there. The shelf, you can actually put it on 3 different levels. You got a lower level, middle level, and upper level. You can see those white dots, and at the top you got a hole for extension cords, and at the bottom you got another hole for extension cords, so the shelf's not interfering. So I think it's pretty nice. And then you got the little magnets to hold the doors closed with nice handles with a pretty finish. But to get back to what I was talking about last time when I made the first video, I kind of made a mistake with my calculation on the sand bed. Now, a 4-inch sand bed is actually this piece of tape here sitting at the top. It's huge. Figured it would take too much away from the display. As you can see, the Buddha in the middle would basically be up to his waist in sand, so it's way too much sand. I went to the Garf deep sand bed calculator. This display is actually only about 15 by 19, and when I calculated the first time I used a whole unit, and that was including the back, so I kind of made a miscalculation there. But 30 pounds should actually give you a 2.5 sand bed, which is those bigger pieces of tape, and I don't think it takes too much away from the display and still deep enough to support the life of gobies or any kind of sand sifting animals that you might want to have in your tank. And another reason, here, this piece of tape back here shows the 4-inch mark, where it's going to be right at the bottom of the lower overflow, and I didn't want it sucking any sand or doing anything, but it's way too tall anyways. I wouldn't recommend doing a deep sand bed on the Core Life BioCube. Just take too much away from the display. So 2.5 is the way I'm going to go. And I went ahead and put my custom lock line return on. If you want to check out how I made it, you can go to my other videos and I show it kind of step by step, but you do have to cut some pieces to make that. And back here I actually picked out a skimmer that's going to go in this section. It's going to be an Aquamax protein skimmer, hang over the back, but I'm probably going to have to cut this hinge off to let it sit on here so that it takes this part into the skimmer and then pours back the clean stuff into the refugium section. And with this tray here, I'm probably going to cut filter sponge to size and lay it in there just so that it'll filter out some of the water that's coming over and polish it, and lay a carbon bag across here because this will be the highest point of flow as far as it coming into the refugium, and being able to change it and clean it easier than actually having to stick my hands all the way at the bottom of the tank. Down here, these 2 level pieces of tape is actually the marking for a 1-inch sand bed, but this baffle here, the 1-inch sand bed, is going to be just below it, and I think it's going to constrict some of the water flow, so I'm probably going to do an angle with the sand bed, as that longer piece of tape indicates, maybe about 2 inches on this end, and try to give it to be leveled out with the glass by the time it gets over here. I know animals and creatures and flow, all that's going to make the sand move, so I'll just let it develop naturally after I put it in, and just try not to mess with it too much. And this little box that I made, I'm actually considering painting the back of this, so if I put a refugium light, the light won't escape and light up the whole room at night. So I'm going to leave this little section unpainted so it'll kind of spotlight onto the Chaetomorpha, and I think it's going to look pretty good. So besides that, I went ahead and installed the MaxiJet 1200 just to show you people what it looked like once it goes in there. nice perfect fit. Got it hooked up to the return line with the plastic hose. Goes right back into that piece and shoots out. And the last thing I want to talk about is this Min and Max on the left side of the aquarium. This is actually indication for the bio balls, because if you had the bio balls, you'd actually have something sitting on that rack there. That's where the bio balls would start, and then it'd come up here on this other rack here would be a drip tray. So when this is filled up with bio balls, this Min and Max level doesn't allow you to completely submerge all the bio balls, so that the drip tray can do its job and the bio balls can work. So, but since I'm doing a refugium, this doesn't really matter. This little spot right here is what's going to matter. It's like a little notch cut out for an emergency to let the flow, get through the baffle if it starts raising up too high before it has to climb that wall. So this is going to be my max water level. You can see the difference with that piece of tape versus that. So it might be a couple quarts. Whatever volume you can add to this, the better. I know adding a sump's the best thing to do, but I'm trying to avoid doing all that. But it'll also help if I had the filter sponge here with the carbon bag, as it's coming over and into this section, having the water level higher up would reduce the splashing and bubbles, and try to keep it as high as you can just to reduce the splashing, because it makes a mess after a while. You have stuff growing all over the place. But that's it, guys. Oh, and this back piece, this was very disappointing to know that once I put it together and I was looking at the pieces, and this is unpainted, so I'm probably going to take the time to paint this back and paint these little sides here. This compressed kind of wood, I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but when it gets wet, it looks very ugly and it starts growing and expanding. I tried coloring it in with a permanent marker to try to hide it, but then if it gets wet again, it just gets thicker and keeps growing. So I really would recommend anybody who has this stand to paint this before you put water in it. So that's my intentions. I'm going to paint it before I even put water in it, and then look for other spots like this. Take the tank off and flip the stand over and just look for little places that look like might swell up. But that's my little review and my plans and changes and update on what I've been doing so far. If you have any questions, just comment below, or if you have any advice that you can give me to improve what I'm doing, let me know. Happy reefing.